As part of our mission at Rise, we promise to help facilitate and educate all our employees. As it's Black History Month, we're so honoured to have an amazing panel of guests today. We wanted to use this month to help amplify voices, and in this space we're amplifying Black female voices and listening to their experiences.
Hi, my name's Gamma and I am a development TV producer, freelance. And basically that just entails me spending 8 hours in an office pretending I'm working and coming up with stuff. I am West African born, Hackney raised, first generation immigrant from the Ivory Coast. And yeah, I've been working in TV for coming up to 7 years and they haven't kicked out yet, but yeah.
Hi, my name is Sienna. I grew up mainly in Kent, which is a predominantly white area, similar to yourself. So I think, me and my brother were one of 4 black students in a school of 1,500, so it was pretty white. I have been working in TV now for like 6 years. Absolutely love it. The majority of my job is basically finding the people that you see on the TV shows. So that can be from like quiz to reality, and it's very entertaining. I mean, we've seen everything. But yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Tiana. I am a digital producer and television producer and an actress as well. Kind of got my fingers in many pies. I grew up in Brent, which is one of the most diverse boroughs in the UK. And my parents were born here, I was born here, but my grandparents are from the Caribbean, so Jamaica and Grenada. And yeah, that's me.
Okay, hi, I'm Karen Yaboa. No. Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Yaboa, new. Sorry, I just got it yesterday. Getting used to it. Sorry, guys, okay, so. Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Yaboa. I am a clinical psychologist and I'm born and raised in South London. My parents are from Ghana and I'm a child of first generation immigrant.
Hi guys, for those of you who don't know me, I work in the UK sales team. I'm UK sales manager, and my background, I'm Egyptian. I was born in Cairo, came to the UK when I was 3, grew up in Wales. I was the only ethnic girl in my school, and then moved to Kent and then London.
So, just to give you a bit of my background, I grew up in a small English town in East Midlands. It was 98% white. I am the daughter of an Ashkenazi Jewish father who came from a line of European immigrants. And my mother is from the Philippines, so she moved over to England when she was 26, and so that's kind of my background. And I've been in media for 6 years. I started out agency side and then I moved over to sales at Bliss, and I'm not going to look back because I love it in sales.
What do you think about representation of black women in TV?
Oh. I mean, from an unscripted perspective, and I feel like the girls would agree because we've seen this and been in rooms where conversations have been had. If you are like a professional, strong-minded, opinionated, well-educated black woman, you don't even make it past the first rounds of casting.
Yeah.
Because you're not the black that they want to see on TV.
Do you see the casting of the angry black woman often within TV?
Oh yeah.
And I'm assuming that's a stereotype that lives on. Like, how do we actually stop that stereotype from existing?
I think it's so weird because black women, we're not shown as caregivers. So, or like black men aren't shown as they can look after their kids. And I mean, I still watch EastEnders, I know not loads of people don't, but they introduce this black character and he's an absent father.
Always, yeah.
You've got another black character who gave up her child, who wasn't really there for her other 2 daughters, and you're just like, But we have kids all the time, but it's that kind of like trope of like black people don't look after their kids, and I remember a film from when I was younger, and it's like taking Isaiah, very old school, but she gives up her son because she's on drugs, and you always see it. It's like, oh, they can't look after themselves, they can't look after
Naturally,
kids.
that does influence people's perception.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
And like, what do you think then about what social media's done for, I guess, the black woman's perception?
You compare the stories that a newspaper shares about
We all love the same things.
against Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton, and like even down to like, what was it, avocados, that she causes a war somewhere because it's her favourite snack, whereas like Kate Middleton, it's like, oh, her favourite snack, like amazing.
Or even that daytime presenter referred to as uppity.
Oh yeah, uppity, which is a word back. They used to call slaves that could read and write. Like,
Because you're stepping out of your lane,
Yeah.
so you're
How dare
uppity.
It's. I think that there's something about being black, being a woman, being a black woman together. I think there's intersectionality, isn't it? There's the kind of coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, which talks about, the kind of cumulative impact of sharing those two identities and the impact of that on black women. We see it in the rates of with black women and how they're impacted in childbirth and treated in hospitals, how much they're believed about pain levels. I saw a video going around on Instagram where a doctor was giving information saying, yes, black women feel just as much pain as everybody else. And I was just floored by that, because thinking, how was this even in question? Who was wondering whether this was true? And being a black person in general, you're dehumanized in so many ways, and then being a woman in so many ways, you're not viewed as equal, and you're having to fight in so many ways. Put them together, and you can see the impact on that in every statistic, of how black women have to kind of fight to be seen as human first for their blackness, and then seen as equal because of having that identity as a woman.
It's so funny because in the same year that obviously George Floyd was murdered, so was Breonna Taylor. But when you look at comments, and not just from non-black people, but even black men, like I've had black men tell me, well, she shouldn't have been dating a drug dealer, but he was not a drug dealer. Like, it's stuff, like the onus of her being murdered was her own fault, even though she was absolutely murdered as George. But because she's a black woman, it's like, well, do you know what I mean? Yeah, and it's like, what's who you lay with?
Even
and
in the same community though, so if you go back to Tory Lanes, you go back to Tory Lanez and the fact that Meghan even didn't withheld his name from the police because she wanted to protect him in a way that wouldn't have happened the other way around. Like, would he have shot Kylie Jenner? No, because shit would have been different. But why did he?
Superly drunk.
Yeah. Why did he feel like he could get away with shooting a black woman? Who knows?
I feel like,
and will he?
Yeah.
It's yet to be seen.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we protect everyone, and no one protects us.
Yeah.
I do think we're at the bottom of the pile, and people be like, "Well, you can take yourself out that pile." Just like, I'm not saying that I've put myself in this hierarchy, no way, but it's when you're sitting in a room and people are trying to come up with ideas for TV shows, and they're like, "Oh my God, you know what? Black women are considered the most ugliest," which was said openly in the room because a dating app had done a survey. They get the least swipes, they get the least matches, and then you're just like, so in the whole world where there are billions of black people, but black women are considered the most ugliest by whose standards? And it's just like, we're ready to protect everyone, even our black men, but it's just like, well, who's protecting us?
It's like a burnout, isn't it? I remember I had a lot of white friends over the BLM movement that would come to me and talk to me about how bad they feel about their racist dad or their racist boyfriend, and I'm like, you're just dumping all this stuff. Like, what am I supposed to say? Why am I trying to make you feel better? And also, everything they're saying is like hurtful, and when they leave, you have to deal with all of it. And it's like, who do I talk to about it? Do you know what I mean? My other black friends are burning them with it. It's like, it's really, no one actually thinks about how you're feeling when they talk about these things.
So you just said burden. And
It is a burden.
I remember I learned the word burden from very young. Always felt like if I express my emotions or my pain, I'm burdening someone, whether it's my parents or relatives or friends. It's always a burden that you're kind of taught to just hold it in, because you're not meant to put your stuff onto someone else. You're meant to carry. Really weird.
So what is the safe? Where is the safe space for Black females to connect, to unload for this? I guess this everything that they're carrying.
Amongst each other, I think.
Yeah.
As you can see, once we start, we can't stop. Because it's like, oh my god, did you have that?
It's so nice. It's so nice to feel like validated when you talk to like friends that have been through the same things.
Why we
Yeah, you
like,
just
Yeah.
go in a room.
of ethnicity, women connect.
Yeah.
Like what's so sad is that me and T, like I never really had Black friends growing up because I was in an area where I didn't have the privilege of having that. And actually coming to London and going through this, I have never felt so lucky and like so nice to be able to talk to. We were just kind of like drawn to each other, and it wasn't like you guys didn't even know each other really. And then all of a sudden we were all crying on the phone about everything that was happening because we couldn't talk to anyone else. So in a weird way, it like brought us together. But also like it's hard because you know if you don't have Black friends, it's like who do you talk to? Where is the safe space? I don't know.
Regardless of what type of Black you are drawn to each other. But also when you are drawn to each other, there is that element, like you said, about not being Black enough. So sometimes, like, I know I felt it, like, even though I am with my Black friends and, like, we're sharing experiences, sometimes you feel like you're not the right type of Black to be in that friendship group, but then you can't really go to your non-Black friends how you feel because they just won't understand it.
What do you mean by type of Black? I think it might be helpful to just...
So just kind of like, oh my God, you don't wear Air Max 90s, but... Or you listen to Elton John. Yeah,
She
like,
loves
I
Elton
love Elton John.
And you like going on trains for
I love,
fun.
yeah, or like
stuff like
bird
that.
watching. Stop shaking your head. But it's not even that's like hobbies. But like growing up in Hackney, like the way I speak and stuff, you're like
It's all connected though, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
We've just been talking about the role of media, isn't it? And then the danger of having one story and the impact
Yeah.
that has on us growing up. That there is that unity of, okay, this is how we act as Black people. This is, and you know what? It's not safe for me to go and explore myself and my identity in other cultures, so I have to do it here, and then that shapes who I am. So for you then, who's had the chance to do that in another way, it doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. Where are you represented?
You like lose your sense of like you're like, what should I be like? Like
I mean,
remember
I
even dating.
I know I have massive identity issues because it's like, well, I know I'm proud to be West African, proud to have grown up in like Hackney, but then even from like my Black friends and then from like my non-Black friends to be told, oh, you're kind of like not the type of Black we want to hang around with. You're just like, because it is that thing of even as Black people, we feel like we have to be what we see portrayed in the media.
Yeah. You do.
And it's like, well, guys, we can be, we could not be that. We like it's like, like rappers like Lil Uzi Vert is like, oh my God, he's so or Young Thug, he's so different, but is he?
It's like even in TV though, they constantly because we're not white, they constantly come to us like, oh my God, what's that grime song? Blah blah blah, or like you must know this celebrity, or like about the latest drama, and it's like we talked about it in the episode. Is that they want your Blackness to be like resourceful but not problematic, so they want like bits of it, and they want you to know all the latest Black culture stuff, even if you don't know it, because like you have different tastes. Like we're all different people.
But then it's a shame that if you do know it, you're like, oh yeah.
You fit the mold, and if you don't know it, you're like, I don't know.
But there's also a shame when you don't know it.
Yeah, both ways.
And you feel
where
like,
do you
who
go?
can you be? Yeah, that's what happens when you're shaped by others' opinions and views of who you should be, rather than having the right and the privilege to choose that for yourself.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to ask, whilst we have Karen here, our doctor, it's quite a big question, but what is racial trauma?
That is a huge question, I think, because it comes from a place of history, but also the right here and now. So it's recognising the impact of racism, racial prejudice, racial violence on the lives of Black people across the world, in the diaspora and in Africa still. The effect of that physically and also mentally on the current generation, but generations to come and generations that have come before. And that feels quite flowery, but I guess when we try to pin it down, it's just recognizing that there is an additional mental, emotional, and physical load that Black people have to hold and have to manage and have to contend with, and have to battle against in order to survive and feel okay and to thrive in the world. You know, in real life, it might look like having to battle against financial insecurity, but there's also what we've talked about today about what it means to fit in and to find your identity, you know, to be yourself, to be okay, and to feel like you're going somewhere. It's just a huge field, and I think it's just important, I think, as a summary, just to recognise the violence and the impact that white supremacy has had on Black people.
And do you think, so in the workplace, I guess we all need to be mindful of our colleagues and our friends going through this at the moment, but do you think that we need to be, I guess, supporting them in a certain way? Do we need to be creating those forums? Do we need to be sort of reaching out to them individually? Like, how sort of do we tackle this within a work environment?
Yeah, I think we've heard today what it means to be celebrated in the workplace, what it feels like to feel like you're a token higher, what it feels like to be battling against this feeling of having imposter syndrome. And all of these things can be either amplified within a work environment, or they could be kind of healed or fostered in a work environment, depending on from the leadership down to culture and on the floor. Like, what does it feel like to be in these workplaces? Am I seen for who I am rather than just the stereotype? Am I allowed to? Is it recognized where I might have, you know, understandable things that I'm battling against, or, you know, gaps in my CV, or areas that I need more support in? And is it recognized where I'm thriving in certain areas, or is that acknowledged and fostered as well? So workplaces have a huge role to play, because there are so many ways that racial violence and racial trauma is played out in the workplace. And inequality is played out in the workplace, in the subtle microaggressions between colleagues, to huge things like actual oppression and discrimination. And that needs to be looked at, and it needs to be thought about as being important to everybody in a real and meaningful way, I think.
You know what's annoying about racial trauma is that you'll never be able to explain it. That's what makes it so frustrating. Like, it's real and you feel it, and it doesn't stop, and it's every day. But you're never gonna be able to like justify it or get someone to go, I understand. But the thing that wound me up was the kind of I know that I'll never understand, but I stand. It's like, I just want you to understand. I really want someone to understand, because I mean, I can't get rid of this.
Yeah.
But like,
I don't believe in that. You can understand, I think. Yeah.
I don't want to understand.
Yeah, I think that's
Because what does that even mean, that I stand?
I don't
It's patronising.
But for me, with racial traumas, when people turn around and be like, well, it's only the diaspora. It's not. I mean, like, Black people in Africa don't feel racial trauma, and I'm just like, yes, they do, because everything that's laws, or whether it's schools, or whether it's the government, is the after effects of colonialism. And you try and explain that to people, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, most of these countries have only been independent for 60 years. So the way, whether it's their army or the police force works, is ingrained in them to kind of hate themselves and not protect themselves. So it's like, I'm Black, but my master before that has taught me not to protect Black people. And then it's just a vicious circle. So I turn around, it's like, Black trauma is even felt within Africa and other Black countries, and they're just like, they'll look at you like, oh my God, really? Oh, I don't think it really is. Like, I had someone go, well, Black Lives Matter, you know, it's only a movement in America and the UK, and I was like, are you okay, babes? Like, it's everywhere. Like, everyone's standing up, because it's not saying that Black Lives Matter and shouting it to just like non-Black people. It's also shouting it to ourselves, to remind ourselves, we matter, we're here to stay, and no one can tell us jack shit.
Is there any sort of advice that you would give to young minority females in the industry, that, you know, from experiences that you've learned yourself, and, you know, how's best for you to celebrate yourself as well? So a big question.
Who wants to start?
I guess it's something that we're all learning ourselves. I think that's something that hasn't been said today as well. That for a lot of black people, the way, especially in the UK, I noticed, and I noticed it a lot with men as well. Like there was this, for the first time, I'm recognizing all of the things that I've let slide and all of the ways that I've been impacted. So for a lot of us, we are just doing that reckoning, like recognizing what's happened to us, that kind of beginning, early phases of trauma where it's like, actually this trauma happened. So I think it's really important for us to continue that process and continue that recognition of what's happened to us. And self-care is something that I definitely preach, and it's the run away with this kind of fluffy idea of what self-care is. But at the heart of it, I think it's about recognizing the ways that life can impact us, and so that we need to kind of feed back into ourselves again, the idea of not being able to pour from an empty cup. And for black women especially, we talked about today, we're used to being told that we should have to care and put everybody else first. So for young black females especially, I'd say, you know, start recognizing it's not just about me first, but me also. I also deserve to have some time out. I also deserve to have some peace. I also deserve a bit of luxury, a bit of time. I also need to give myself the benefit of the doubt. I also need encouragement. I need help, and I need to know to ask for that too. So I think that would be my advice to young females, is that kind of recognizing the way you're impacted and ask for that.
My advice that I would give to somebody in any creative industry, which was given to me at drama school, was that you are enough. Really hard lesson, because it doesn't mean anything until you understand it. Like, you just go, what do you mean I'm enough? Well, I've done like this about myself, and I need to change this. You're telling me. It's really conflicting as well, because society and the media tells you you're not enough. So you fight that battle. But so realize you're enough. Don't try to understand that yet. Just know that. And find what you want to do and go for it, because it's not going to be easy.
Brilliant advice.
I think it's, because I say it now, like fast forward 3 months, like even though we started the podcast out kind of like trauma and anger, it's like quickly becomes something of joy, and like listening to it back, but listening to feedback, it's like, oh, actually we are telling black women out there how to find joy in themselves. And I think the self-care thing is sitting down and evaluating that you exist. I think that's the important thing. It's sometimes we feel like even though we are here, we don't exist in so many different narratives, and you almost feel like you have to push yourself into it. But it's like, no, I'm here. I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to mute myself. I know it's easier said than done, because you instantly just go, I'm now going to be the palatable black girl. But you just have to realise that you were just as good as everyone else. Your voice matters as much as everyone else, and you are as important as everyone else, and not to doubt yourself. I think the imposter syndrome, it's almost like as soon as we're born, we accept it. And I think it's the unlearning and teaching ourselves that we're not imposters. We have every right to be here, basically. And I think that's how we then move into celebrating our black joy and finding pride in being badass black women.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. I would also say for young black females coming into our industry within media, is you have to just be yourself. Like you said, it's easier said than done, but I think you can lose your way. You can go down this stereotypical route. You can shake hands with this person and suddenly you act a certain way, or you know, there's a massive drinking culture, so you feel like you need to fit in and drink, or there's a massive sort of laddie culture, you feel like you need to fit in with that. But I would say I've definitely tried to do that, and it wasn't only until very recently I thought, no, actually this is who I am, and like you said, I'm going to remain who I am. That's my advice for young females coming into the industry. It's like, just please just stay true to who you are and be your most authentic self.
Yeah, this goes back to the mission about being your authentic self, because you know you're in a business that you're the black person that needs to be what they expect you as a black person to be, but actually you need to be showing up being your most authentic self. And I don't know, like you might be in completely different like stages in the journey, but do you feel like with events that have happened this year, do you feel like you can be more of your authentic self, or do you still feel like there's like, obviously there's still so much to do, but do you feel like there's progress happening?
I mean, these girls will tell you I'm so unapologetically
Yeah,
black.
It's no longer an
like-
option.
I mean, at work, I'm just like, I'm black.
Yeah.
I'm a black woman.
Black is
I'm
black
black.
is
I'm
black,
black,
as
black,
you
black,
say.
as I say.
But I definitely feel like this, something's changed in me in the past few weeks, that I am not apologetic anymore. I wouldn't stand for most of the stuff that I stood for, and I just feel like I want to make such a change, even though it shouldn't be on our shoulders too.
Yeah.
And there are definitely times I've cowered away from doing it because I was the least, I was kind of the most junior person in the room when things were happening. I definitely feel like something snapped and there's no going back with any of this stuff. Like, and then like I feel like it's weird. Like, I mean, we've utilised it. We've made a podcast in the past few weeks. Like, I'm being way more vocal on shows about stuff, and I feel like the best thing about it now is that no one's telling us to shut up. They're like, okay, we can't say anything here, so like whatever you're saying is like gospel, fine. Like, and I'm just gonna run with it and see what happens. Like,
and also like celebrating obviously Black Joy, but also the podcast. I did want to bring it in. Can you give us like a little bit of a taster? And we will be sharing this across the Bliss, because I think it's fantastic and so professionally produced, by the way. If you could give us like a bit of a taste of what topics you're covering and where it's sort of where the podcast is,
where it's going right now.
So we are 3-4 episodes in, and I think we kind of like pick topics by how we feel that week.
Yeah, so we started the podcast out of anger, really.
Yeah.
So the first episode was obviously about BLM.
It was very angry.
We were pretty screaming like throughout the podcast, and then it turned into like being in TV, working in TV, how that could like the experiences we've had with celebrities, with staff, with channels, and then the following episode was like dating, which was great, or lack of, amazing. But
I do recommend everyone watching, listening to that one.
We'll put it in Rice Reads.
It's like we talk about like dark subjects, but I feel like we always end up laughing throughout most of it, which is great.
So here, Karen, the lovely Karen, Dr. Karen.
Dr. Karen. Yes.
Dr. Karen. Podcast.
It's going to be in an episode of our podcast. We will feed you. So we're very much looking forward to that as well, because as well as our free Black opinions, we also want to introduce our listeners to, professional, strong-minded, beautifully eloquent Black women, and just
me.
Yeah.
But also, it's like it happens in every industry. So while we talk about being Black in TV, which is one of the episodes, it's like everybody has that in their field, you know. It's like Black in advertising, Black in music, Black in whatever. So like the scope of the podcast is like we can talk about anything.
It's going to be really interesting to hear the similarities. There'll be different.
There's always overlaps. And that's what makes that's why I'm like, we're not making it up. Like look, like people, we don't even know each other and there's overlap.
Well, we've seen overlap today in our different.
All of us have felt like.
So I really enjoyed this. I thought all of your experiences so relevant to what we're trying to achieve with Rise, our committee. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and also just want to say, as part of Rise Reads, we are going to be featuring the podcast within that. So if you look at the resource list in the Bliss Wiki, please refer back to it if you are interested in what you've heard today and want to hear more about the podcast, then please check it out. We were also going to be following up with the newsletter at the end of this month, which will give you a bit of a roundup as to everything that we've been doing in Black History Month and all the unsung heroes that we've spoken about in the company meeting.
So thanks to Victoire, Sienna, Gamma. I call her Victoire because she's actually my friend. Also, Tiana and Karen. Thank you so much, ladies.
Yeah, you've been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Cheers!
Yes, thank you.
This is like some badass strong women.